Yeah, folks, I'm back in the world of Hearthstone. I heard a hunter was getting nerfed, and we've got some new cards coming up from the Escape from Violet Hold class set to talk about. In fact, I guess they've revealed all of the legendaries today, with some more cards to come that are presumably going to synergize with these in some way or another. These class sets are kind of printing like little packages of cards that all go together, unless you're Druid. Last time around. But what that means is we're going to be taking a look at some new cards, and I will also probably be playing some new decks this week as well after some buffs and nerfs land. So anyway, kicking things off here with Godfather Kazakis. He's back. He is a 3-mana 3/3 once again, and he's going to be making you a custom thing once again. Battle cry this time: plot a custom sham trial and then choose the trial's length. So I'm going to show you the lengths first, because I think this is important to consider the context here, but these will come last. So you get to kind of pick this based on whatever you get in your sham trial, which really helps. But basically, you're going to create a custom spell with some powerful effects, and then depending on how soon you want that spell to resolve, you can set the cost. If you need it immediately, because you're on turn 10, you played Godfather Kazakis, you can go for a 7-mana version. The trial finishes immediately. That means your spell's going off right now. Alternatively, maybe you play this on 3, you want to have a 4-cost spell to follow up on curve, so you go for the Grueling Trial. That says the trial finishes at the start of your next turn. So you'd kind of skip turn 4, but then your spell would resolve on turn 5. Alternatively, if you just want to bake this for later or play it immediately on turn 3, you can go for the Unending Trial. Bake the result for later. Trial finishes in 4 turns, I guess, landing on turn 7, maybe turn 6. I don't know how exactly it works, but bake it in for later. So, you've got kind of a mix here. It's like, if you don't want to spend any mana, you want to keep other things rolling, you've got a lot of cards to play, you might just say, hey, I'll just save this for later. No big deal. It's going to give me a power spike later on. Let's look at the do stuff. If you think the card's going to require a power spike earlier, you might spend 4 to take a downturn, but then get a big moment. So anyway, let's look at the cards you can pick. You're going to take 2 of these to create your custom spell. So summon a Void Lord, restore 12 health to your hero, reduce the cost of minions in your hand by 2, summon 3 random 3-cost minions, give minions in your hand in battlefield +3/+3, draw 3 cards, steal 2 cards from your opponent's hand, which is kind of crazy, take control of a random enemy minion, or force each minion to attack another minion. So a lot of effects, right? And they're all pretty valuable. I will say, like Summon a Void Lord, that's a 9-mana result versus, restore 12 health to your hero. That's like 3 mana these days, 2 mana even, maybe, arguably, because there's like that priest card at 4 that also draws you a card that restores 12. So definitely a mixed bag there, but if you're desperate, that 12 health might be really, really important in some cases. If you've already kind of turned the corner, you just want to get some life to be safe, you might take that 7-mana version with 12 health just to get it immediately in a late game or whatever. Or, do it on turn, 6 and play it on turn 7, however you want to shake it out. Then you've got like, board fill, like 3 random 3-cost minions. I'd argue that's not very good. Like, it's just, like all these results are going to be happening fairly late in the game. Like 4 turns is pushing it back to the mid game after. Even if you play this on turn 4, it's not happening until turn 5 for Grueling Trial, right? So it's like turn 5 is kind of the earliest any of these things are going to be happening under normal circumstances. So it's like 3 3-cost minions on turn 5. I think it's fine, but it's not great. I don't think it's a little more tempo-y, but minions in hand in battlefield +3/+3, like the timing on the battlefield buff in particular could be kind of weird. Unending Trial finishing in 4 turns, that's going to happen like at the start of your turn, right? So you'd have to build a board into that, as opposed to like play your board and then the thing will resolve, or you'd have to hope your board survives somehow. So that seems kind of weird that it's a battlefield buff, but the hand buff's significant anyway. Draw 3 cards, like that's always going to feel all right in any scenario. Like drawing's great. Some of the stealing stuff too, like that just kind of works, I guess. Timing wise could be important, but probably just works in many cases. Did we talk about the last one? I might have skipped this. Force each minion to attack another minion. That's just a great board clear, right? But some of these do have a timing component, like taking control of a random enemy, forcing to attack another minion. The board clear aspect, right? It's like kind of hard to time those. So it's like, if you get detained for destruction, you're probably going to have to take rushed trial because you're going to want to say like, hey, I need to use this at the right time. I need to know it goes off immediately. So I'm going to have to go for the 7-mana version. So in some ways, the cards will kind of nudge you in the direction of the timing as well, which is why it's important that the timing is last. Thank God. That's going to make that a lot easier. So, you know, at the end of the day, there will be some results here where it's like, I only spent 3 mana and I got an insane payoff, right? Like I spent 3 mana and I got a Void Lord and I drew 3 cards. Insane. Like that's all I need to know. I don't need to know any more about this card. Sometimes you're going to play Kazakus on 3. You're going to summon a Void Lord on like turn 6 or 7, and you're going to draw 3 cards on turn 6 or 7. I actually think that's going to be totally fine and completely make this card playable. Same thing with like cost reduction could be nuts. Stealing cards could really counter opponents. So like that's my base assumption is like, I just throw this in on 3 because half the time you're just throwing something in on 3 that's not doing anything anyway. I get a little speed bump 3/3. And then I get a huge payoff later in the game. As long as my deck is a deck that's trying to go that late into the game, then that's fine. Like, you know, it's going to be impactful. And like a 3/3 wasn't the biggest sacrifice in the world. So it's like, yeah, this is going to be worth it in those instances. And then, you know, beyond that, there might be some grueling trial or rush trial moments that also just make sense. Like having the flexibility is fine because those could still line up, particularly late in the game. This becomes kind of a 10 mana fill in some cases. The question is, how often do you really whiff? You know, you're seeing like 6 cards every time. So you get a choice, you know, 1 of 3, choice 1 of 3. It's pretty hard to totally whiff, you know. There's no like 3 cards that are so bad. I guess maybe if you got Shiv, Swill, and Contract, you'd be like, oh man, I don't really want a hand buff. I don't really want 12 health. I don't really want 3 cost minions, but you might just take 3 cost minions because it's like that's the kind of most neutral result there. So, you know, like sometimes, but like the second round, you're going to get offered something again that you like. So, and again, in theory, you're only ever spending 3 mana if you want. So I think this card's actually pretty good. I think this could slot into a lot of different decks. I mean, not like aggressive decks typically, but anything that goes mid-rangey or later probably can make room for this. It just feels like one of those like generic legendaries you put in. I mean, of course it's a Warlock card specifically, but it just feels like, you know, yeah, I can afford 3 mana. I can afford a slot for this. It's going to have some pretty big moments when I get that Void Lord, steal my opponent's win conditions, get a board clear for 3 mana or whatever. There are definitely some moments where this feels pretty impactful. So I think Godfather Kazakus is actually pretty good. Moving on to another Warlock card here. This is 5 mana, the Frame Job. Destroy 2 random enemy minions and discover a minion in the enemy deck to put on top. So a little bit of a board reset here. If you got 2 big guys in particular, this could feel, I think, you know, 5 mana is, it's not great because there aren't that many boards that shake out that well into that. You know, a lot of little tokens floating around these days always. You might accidentally hit some 1/1s instead of the 5/5s or whatever, but it might be moments where it's fine. Or you could use some other little sweeper AoE to clean out the little stuff and then have this to remove the remaining big boys or whatever. The question then becomes with this, discover a minion in the enemy deck to put on top, right? That seems pretty bad in general. Like, you know, maybe you give them some little junk draw instead of like their big legendary, but you wouldn't know the big legendary was there anyway, right? Sometimes you might accidentally be giving them a minion when they didn't have a minion at all that they needed. It's just like, how often is that great? I mean, it's definitely going to lower the quality of their draw on average. But I think the question is, like, if they're showing us this on day 1, we're not going to see any other Warlock cards today, which, spoiler, go ahead and read this real quick. Pause the video, take a screenshot. We're going to get to it shortly. I feel like that's going to tie into the synergy for Warlock, right? There's going to be something about like maybe putting stuff in the opponent's deck where maybe Frame Job is going to play to your synergy, because otherwise, like, this has nothing to do with Godfather Kazakus or anything like that. Like, I think we just have to hold and see the rest of the Warlock cards to really get a good assessment here on what Frame Job could be. That said, I'm not actually going to be rating any of the cards today because we haven't seen the full sets. These are hyper synergistic. I'm just going to talk through them today, and then we'll kind of recap tomorrow or whenever we get more cards to kind of circle back and score these and talk about them in that context. So next up, as you saw, is Captain Crowley, a 5 mana 4/5 pirate. Your Cannoneers fire an additional shot, and Battlecry summon 2 1/1 Cannoneers, which this is the Cannoneer, which, by the way, there aren't a lot of cards like this, and we're going to see another one in this video later too, that don't tell you what the token does. I feel like most cards, you know, they'll say like summon a token with lifesteal or summon a token that, you know, deals 1 damage at end of turn, which is what this does. Like a little clue on what the token does. There might be other examples. I'd be curious if you guys have those. This one doesn't feel as egregious to me because it's pretty complicated text. You couldn't really put that on Captain Crowley. But we're going to see a version later that I should have maybe got to first when talking about this. So kind of ignore this topic for now because this is not really a problem, but the one later is a little weird. Anyway, Cannoneers, you can see, is a 1-mana 1/1 pirate. I think this is also a collectible card given the rarity gem here. And it reads, at the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. So these are little pingers. Boy, 1 damage to random enemy is, you gotta have a lot of these to make it feel good. Even with the Captain Crowley buff here of firing an additional shot, you're talking about basically, you know, dealing 4 damage in pings at the end of your turn here with Crowley, which it's fine, you know, it's some face damage, might clean up some little 1/1s, snipe a 1 health thing at some level, right? There's definitely impact there, and you're getting 3 bodies, which I also like. You know, 3 bodies is great, so you're still developing some threat. You're assuming a pirate deck that's doing this is going to want to be a little more aggressive. We're going to actually see some other Cannoneers as well with hand Cannoneer cards and synergy and stuff. Obviously, this is going to be a Cannoneer set for Warrior, given that's the only cards we're going to see, but you just know there's going to be more. So this is a 3-mana 3/2. After your hero attacks, your Cannoneers fire. So basically, you know, again, if you load this up early, it's a little off curve weirdly with Crowley because you would want to attack on 3 and 4, and by the time you got to 5 it would be gone, so you're gonna have to save one of those attacks until 5 for Crowley minus any coin scenarios. You get 2 Cannoneers. They're gonna fire an additional shot, but that actually is triggered even again by hand cannon, right? Because you're making them fire here. It doesn't say like they deal extra, so you're making them fire, so that's gonna launch 4 damage from the Crowley Cannoneers, and then at end of turn you're gonna get another 4 damage from the Crowley Cannoneers, which is 8 damage total, which that starts to sound a lot more interesting. Just far more likely you clear stuff when you get up to those bigger numbers, right? More significant face damage. The weapon could also maybe like clean a minion out of the way or whatever, create some better breakpoints. So that starts to look pretty intriguing when this all comes together. There's still this like back of my mind, like, is it better than Hunter's like arcane tripwires or whatever? It's like, well, kind of, but it takes a lot more work, you know, a lot more mana commitment. You got to have these Cannoneers on board. Now, another thing to consider, of course, is presumably we're going to see more Cannoneer type cards. I don't know if we'll get actually more Cannoneer summoners, but I think you will. But also you just have the Cannoneers we think are collectible and that you can play. So of course, if you're way ahead, there could be a moment where Crowley is getting played into like 3 or 4 Cannoneers that you already have. And then you're talking about some crazy snowballing, right? Like if you have 5 of these suckers on board, right? It's like, wow, okay, that's 10 damage. And then your hand cannon could maybe launch another 10 damage. And it's like, dude, the opponent really can't fall behind on these Cannoneers, or this becomes a crazy high pressure push where you're just suddenly dealing like lethal amounts of damage really, really quickly. So they are 1/1s. I think that's really easily swept up by so many different things these days. You know, even Hunter has the best board clears in the world. So it's like, I don't think you're usually going to be sticking too many Cannoneers all at once, but is there a world where you can almost set up an OTK out of this instead of playing it for like purely tempo and just trying to get out quick? Or, you know, maybe it's a mix of both where you save a little bit of this back and create a scenario where you set up that hand cannon and then a Crowley and you just go like, you know, here's 20 damage to face or whatever. On top of the pressure I put in early with the rest of my tempo pirates or whatever. That definitely feels like a possibility here. So this one's like really riding the line for power level for me, where I could see this being pretty oppressive and pretty scary. And it's just like, oh man, there's just so much output on this and so many pings. It's just like really hard to play into this, whether it's minions or just staying alive. At the other side, I could see there maybe not being quite enough cards, even with a full class set here. Does it become basically a full deck? Whereas when we were talking about something like Arcane Tripwire, that's just like you can kind of put that in your deck and it's going to do the same sort of thing, but it's around a lot of other great cards, as we've seen with Face Hunter stuff. Whereas this requires the full commitment, and I don't know if it's going to have the support that it needs. So it's like, in some ways, it's definitely threatening. I can see that late game push being pretty dramatic, but also getting there might feel awkward. So I'm kind of in that like 3.5 to 4 star spot right now. But again, I need to see the rest of the cards. That's why we're going to save scores for later. So next up here is Priest with Wraith von Geist, which is the most on the nose Like, is this a character name from? No, it's not a character name from World of Warcraft beforehand. The most on the nose, like, this guy's named after ghosts, obviously, wraiths and geists, but it's just, it's almost too on the nose for me. I don't know. Like, I like a little bit of that, but this is maybe pushing it too far. Anyway, this is a 7 mana 5/5 for priest. Battlecry: resurrect your minions that were reborn this game. They attack random enemy minions. So this is clearly going to be building into like a reborn synergy. We're also going to see another card here, Haunt, a 3 mana spell with shadow. Give a minion +2/+3 reborn and taunt. Now, interestingly, yeah, okay. This Wraithbane Geist does account for this well. It doesn't say your reborn minions. That would mean they need to have the keyword by default. It says your minions that were reborn. So I think even stuff that you give reborn with Haunt will work with this, which that's probably why they revealed these together. But, you know, just clarifying there, which allows you to not only maybe play this around reborn cards, which might really limit your pool, but you could also include just way better things. Any kind of big, cool death rattle, suddenly if you give it reborn, not only is that good for the first round when it's, you know, death rattling, but then also off Wraithbane Geist, you might be able to reactivate those death rattles in some really big ways, like we have, you know, the big prepare guy right now. Cheat one of those out early, give it reborn with Haunt, and then pull it back with Wraithbane Geist. You're suddenly going to be healing yourself a ton. You're going to be summoning some 6-drops next to the reborn bodies. So, well, actually, I guess in this case, it would not have reborn again the second time off Wraithbane Geist, unless, again, it were reborn by default. But you get the idea. There's still some results there that are awesome, and you get that 6-drop. So, you know, you're just saying, hey, I'm going to kind of play out a bunch of reborn stuff, which might be surprisingly tempo-y, you know, just a lot of bodies in the early game. And then you use Wraithbane Geist as this kind of big board clear, because they're going to be attacking 3 enemy minions. That maybe also triggers a bunch of cool death rattles, bonus effects, etc., because of how you've built your deck, and leaves you with a big board as well. That all sounds pretty cool. Like, I think the question for me is just then, like, how do you win the game from there? Because, you know, you've taken a board swing or whatever, but yeah, are you in a position to win after that? You've just kind of got a board left behind. How big is it? How threatening is it? Has the opponent got a board clear to answer that, etc.? And did this come online maybe a little too late at 7 mana? A couple questions on that, but if your deck's sufficiently like tempo-y enough, you know, you might just have a sticky enough board left behind that some of it connects face, and this becomes kind of a 2-part, you know, win condition where you're just like overwhelming them with stuff. That definitely doesn't seem impossible to me, but it is going to take a full commitment. You're going to have enough reborn, and you're going to have to draw this guy consistently enough for all that to work. So, you know, just it's going to take some building and some working for this one to get there. Now on to Haunt. I do just like this spell a lot, I think. Being able to give a minion reborn regardless of any Wraithbane Geist stuff. Just, yeah, you know, that's great. Like any little death rattle, any little, you know, this is just a good tempo play a 2-drop, Haunt it, and like, man, okay, I'm pretty happy actually. Like I just got a really good board presence, so that +2/+3, the taunt can slow down any of those aggressive decks, and the reborn is a nice way to like keep something around, or, you know, farm up death rattle effects like we said. So I think, you know, both hit your 2-drops, but also late in the game hit a big guy to really farm that reborn upside. This actually just looks like a really good spell to me. Forget any of the other the reborn aspects, you know, synergies or whatever. Just let me run this card. It looks good. So then finally here we have some rogue cards, which it's crazy to me that Matthias Shaw has never been in Hearthstone. Like, is that true? Like, I just can't believe it. Like, it kind of blows my mind. He's had a hero skin, but he's a pretty big character. There's not many big characters left in World of Warcraft world these days that have not appeared in Hearthstone with their base name. So this is kind of a nice surprise. Anyway, he's a 4 mana 4/4 with stealth. And whenever a friendly stealthed minion attacks, which I guess includes himself, reduce the cost of a random card in your hand by 3, which that's actually kind of crazy to me. Like, that's a really, really significant discount. On his own, is that good enough? I mean, I doubt it. You know, it's hard for that random discount to hit a really key thing. You'd kind of ideally want like a high cost card that gets playable sooner, and you're sort of just playing a 4 mana 4/4 in the meantime, which isn't great. So on his own, no, but of course, we're obviously going to see more stealth stuff, including the SI7 Slayer here, a 3 mana 1/2 with stealth, and whenever a friendly stealthed minion attacks, give it +2/+2. So again, you know, you maybe play this guy on turn 3, play Matthias Shaw on 4. Maybe you attack immediately with a Slayer, but maybe you don't. Maybe you wait to attack with both of them. I guess you could still just attack with a Slayer. That's an immediate 3-cost discount. He's also going to be a 3/4, which is not great, but it's fine. Then again, you attack later with Shaw on 4, and you've already got like 6 costs and discounts. You know, Shaw has to be on board for this effect to work. But if you've also played like a 1 and 2 cost stealth, you could save all of them if the opponent doesn't have a way to interact with that stealth. And then, you know, on turn 4, immediately resolve 9 mana in discounts, because you're 1, 2, and 3 you're attacking. And then again on turn 5, when you attack with Shaw, another 3 mana. So 12 mana total in discounts if you hit kind of a perfect stealth curve, which would be crazy significant amount of discounts. Like, that's actually nuts. I guess also because of that, many of your stealth minions will be buffed by the SI7 Slayer. You know, your 1 and 2 drop would also be buffed by the Slayer. Now, one thing I want to talk about with the wording here is that it does say friendly stealthed minion, not stealth. So I think once it's unstealthed, it will no longer benefit from these effects, right? I think it's like the actual cloudiness that matters, not the keyword based on this wording. So kind of like a one-time use per minion. You know, if this like sticks around, you're not going to be able to trigger multiples, but I don't know. I think that's okay. This looks like a really, really powerful effect. I just have questions about deck construction. Like, you have to have things that pay this off, but you also have to run like, you know, low cost stealth stuff. Is there an intersection there where you can actually build a deck that makes sense? That's the challenge for me. Like, I don't really see that coming together, but at the same time, it's such a powerful effect. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't have to be high cost stuff. Maybe it's just a bunch of 3-cost stuff, and you just swarm hard in the mid game and just win like that off all the stealth damage and stuff. So it's really hard to write off cost discounts. Those are some pretty significant ones indeed. So that's all the cards. And like I said, I'm not going to be doing any star ratings today because we just need to see the rest of these packages to really know for sure. But I think some promising stuff. These legendaries all do some pretty big effects. I think Kazakus is like a sure thing. We don't even need to see the rest of the cards. He feels kind of independent. The rest, I feel like I want to see more to know for sure, but I certainly see some potential. So stay tuned for the rest of the Violet Hold class set cards and those ratings soon. But I guess until then, thanks much for watching, and until next time, game on.